Court is now in session. It is Monday, March the 7th, 2022. It's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And our agenda today has to do with the settlement of our participation in the opioid litigation. I'll turn the floor over to our attorney, Jay Henderson.
Thank you, Judge. Jay Henderson.
And what I'm going to ask you to do is at the podium, because
At the podium?
Yep.
I can do that. Let me get everything up in the right order.
We post this on the website so people can see what we've done.
I think that's a great idea.
And if I let you stand up here, all they'd see is the back of your head.
That's my best side. At least I keep convincing myself of that. Good afternoon, Commissioner, Judge Kelly, Jay Henderson for the record. About 4+ years ago, I came before you to discuss with you the opioid epidemic that has been ongoing in the United States for the past 2 decades. At the time, the issue was whether or not Kerr County, along with sister local governments, had a legitimate claim against the opioid industry for the proliferation of opioids in our country. We basically looked at the entire opioid pharmaceutical community, the big players being the manufacturers and the distributors. We have not yet dealt with, but will deal with, the lower level pharmacies and other people that are in the chain. But what we're talking about today is opioid manufacturers and distributors. What we've learned in the last 4+ years doing discovery is that in approximately 1996, the FDA approved a drug called OxyContin, which was approved based upon representations from the company that proved to be untrue. The main ones being that opioids are not addictive, or there is a very tiny addiction rate. And number 2, that opioids are a necessary medication for a whole panoply of maladies, everything from a twisted ankle, I got a wisdom tooth out, I had knee surgery, maybe I strained my back in the yard. And doctors were convinced over a period of time that there was a new paradigm for prescribing opioids and treating pain. Now, I'm not going to say that the FDA was not at fault. I'm not going to say the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, did not play a little bit of a loose role in this. And there certainly are bad physicians and bad pharmacies out there. But the cumulative evidence taught us that this was, by and large, an industry-driven initiative. And after doing research, congressional committees studied this, Senate committees studied this, other government watchdogs studied this, and they came to the conclusion that it's documented on government websites that the primary responsibility for the current crisis that we face was this industry. And they made billions and billions and billions of dollars at the expense of thousands of humans that live in the United States that have died in the last 20 years. One of the things that's interesting about the opioid crisis compared to other public health crises, this is clearly man-made, and man-made in a legal environment, which makes it strange compared to, for example, illegal drugs that are not controlled in any way. We have what they call a closed distribution system for pharmaceutical products. So at every step of the way, there is accountability in the statutes, both on a federal level and a state level. What we found is that the drug companies and the drug distributors played fast and loose with the rules. And I will tell you, a lot of it is due to the bureaucracy of the federal government. So for example, if there were complaints about addiction, the FDA didn't act on that immediately. It took them months, and then they would get another study from the drug company saying, well, that study was flawed. Our study shows it's not addictive. And this cycle went on and on and on, and all it did was enhance the ability of people to get these drugs and prescribe them. So by the mid-2000s, late 2000s, what we ended up with was a huge population that started on opioids and became addicted to them with no notice of risk factors about who might become addicted. It's a very strange drug because what it does, opioids, by the way, are the same chemical as heroin. They're the same chemical as morphine. They're the same chemical as the latest scourge, fentanyl. They're just varying in strength, and these chemicals rewire your brain to where you become addicted to them in as little as 3 days. That's the science. You don't know who's at risk though, so you might have a guy that works in an oil field in Midland, and he wrenches his back and he gets on a 30-day supply of opioids, and before he knows it, he's addicted to them. And the addiction specialist will tell you that once you become addicted, you will literally do anything to satisfy that craving. It's not like alcohol is a craving, cigarette smoking is a craving, McDonald's cheeseburgers are a craving. This is a completely different animal. We've hired some of the leading addiction specialists in the country that have explained to us the difficulty in dealing with opioid addiction. And it's an ongoing battle. It is basically an incurable disease, but there are programs that can help dramatically curb this appetite and get you back on your feet. So what we did was we recommended that Kerr County file suit against these companies, and the county agreed, with the goal being, let's help citizens in Kerr County with the best, most reliable tools that are available. So what we did, along with most of the big counties in Texas, let's forget west of here, let's go to Harris County, Dallas County, Tarrant County, Bexar County, Cameron County, go down the list, all joined in this effort. And we consolidated our efforts. So we had about 100 lawyers in 15 or 20 different firms working on this for the last 4 years. We've spent over $10 million just on experts and just on document production, reviewing documents, having consultants assist us, building expert models, damages models, coming up with programs that will be the proper programs to use these funds in our local communities. And as one example, because of my interest in Kerr County, we have an expert whose specialty is how to deal with addiction in rural areas. You know, we don't have a huge infrastructure in Kerr County to deal with addiction. We have some very nice programs that help on certain things, but we do not have walk-in brick and mortar clinics where people can go in and get addiction treatment. So what we're working on is a telemedicine program where we can have people go into the doctor once a month, once every 6 weeks, once every 8 weeks, but get that weekly or even bi-weekly treatment they need in an environment that fits their circumstances. So we talked to some experts about these programs. The American Medical Association has recommendations. The Department of Health and Human Services has recommendations. The Texas House of Representatives, including our rep, Andy Murr, was on the committee, have recommendations. And what we've done is tried to assemble a case to, number one, recover funds, which is what this is all about, and number two, come up with a program for using those funds wisely. And we think we've done it. We hired 24 expert witnesses, everybody from people that talk about drug marketing, what the drug companies did wrong, FDA regulations they violated, the liability part of the case. And then we created the damages part of the case, which is actually where the focus of our effort was. What do we do now that we have some funds available coming soon? So, last fall, Johnson & Johnson, the largest drug company in the world, well, depending on what year you're looking at, Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer, they agreed to a settlement that is $290 million coming to the state of Texas. Now you may ask, well, how much of that does Kerr County get? We have an economics professor at the University of Virginia. His name is R.U.H.M. You can look him up. He is very well published, very reputable. He's a healthcare economist. And what he did was he took population and then he looked at the number of opioids that were in a given community, because some areas of the country, such as Appalachia, had a much higher per capita use of opioids in their communities. He looked at the deaths, overdose deaths in these communities. He looked at all of the objective criteria we could find to say, how much was this particular community impacted by the opioid crisis? And he allocated funds based upon an objective set of criteria. So his objective criteria led to $57,000 of that $290 going to Kerr County. And if you look at this handout,
57,000?
Yes, 57,000. If you look at the handout on page, well, they're not numbered, but The third to the last page, second to the last page, gives you the cumulative amount that went from each of the defendants who have settled, with Johnson & Johnson being the first one, and then Endo is a company that is a big generic drug maker, but they have threatened bankruptcy for the last year. So Endo paid money. Teva is the largest generic drug maker in the world, but once again, generic drugs. And the real culprits in this litigation were not the generic drug companies, but the brand drug companies, because y'all may keep in mind, generic drug companies don't do a lot of advertising. They just sell pills. The people that make the big profits are the brand drug companies that have these new drugs that they have exclusivity for. Then the big three distributors are McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen. And they have obviously the biggest amount there because they were responsible for over 80% of the distribution of opioids in the country. So what we're talking about today for Kerr County is $315,000 in funds as part of this settlement. Let me give you a couple of things to keep in mind about this, please, if I can. When this litigation began, it was all assigned to a judge in Ohio. His name was Polster, P-O-L-S-T-E-R. He was a very well-respected federal judge. He was handling all of the cases in federal court in the country. He was, for all intents and purposes, kind of king over the opioid litigation. The problem is that we did not want a federal judge in Ohio telling us what to do in Kerr County or Harris County or Bexar County. We wanted to have control over our own funds. We wanted to have control over the use of those funds, and we wanted to have control over the negotiations in arriving at those funds. So what we did was started a state proceeding in Harris County before a very reputable judge named Bob Schaefer. He's been working on this for almost 4 years as well, and he will be the one handling the funds in Texas and deciding, along with a committee that has been appointed. The judge will kind of oversee the committee. There is a committee that will decide where general funds can be spent. But Kerr County, you gentlemen, or your predecessors, or your successors will be deciding where Kerr County funds go. And I would advise you strongly to identify in the community people who have expertise in addiction, who have expertise in social services, and who have expertise in education about addiction to help decide where these funds go. You might even empower them to make those decisions on a recommendation to the county commissioners. So what we did, number one, we secured control over these funds in Texas. Every other state that's getting involved in these settlements, except I think South Carolina cut a deal as good as ours. But the other states all are subject to the control of a federal judge in Ohio over where their funds are spent. We did not want that. Number two, Judge Kelly brought this up. What if somebody goes bankrupt? What if somebody does this? What if somebody does this? We have what's called a favored nations clause in our settlements with Teva and Endo. Johnson & Johnson, let me say, Johnson & Johnson money is in the bank. Doesn't matter what else happens, Johnson & Johnson money has already been paid. We have control over it in a trust account. So that money is already in hand. The other three accounts that we're trying to secure are subject to a favored nations clause, which basically means if they ever declare bankruptcy, if they ever try to cut a deal with somebody that's better than ours, we will be protected as a secured creditor. We're going to have as much chance to get money as anybody. We're not going to be an unsecured creditor that has to wait to the end of the line. So we did everything we could to protect ourselves as much as the law permitted. And a third thing we did in this case, which I think is really going to prove to be helpful, you may have heard that there was a trial in Ohio that ended in the fall against the pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. The jury found that the pharmacies also had a responsibility for the opioid crisis. In fact, according to most people that work in this industry, the pharmacies are the last line of defense for what I will call irresponsible prescribing. You know, if you have somebody come into a Walgreens in Kerrville and they're from 100 miles away and they want to fill a pain pill prescription, That's the people that are supposed to be policing that, because we have a national and a state data bank which requires all controlled substances to be entered. So the pharmacy checks and they say, hey, this guy lives in Mineral Wells. What is he doing in Kerrville filling the prescription? They inquire, they investigate, they're supposed to stop it. They did not. They did not. In fact, the Department of Justice right now is investigating Walmart for irresponsible practices. That has not yet been completed, but we shall see. So the third point that we were able to secure is we're going to have the same terms of settlement for any future settlements. So we're not going to have to renegotiate these things every time. And we're going to have the same terms, which we think are very favorable terms for the Texas counties. One thing to keep in mind, a stumbling block throughout this entire episode has been that the Attorney General of Texas has to participate in and approve every settlement. That's state law. There's just a statute that says, hey, you know, if you're going to work for public good, the Attorney General has to give it his imprimatur of authority. I will only say, since this is a public record, I will only say that that has been a constantly challenging task to deal with the Attorney General's office. In the end, things worked out favorably, but it took months. The Attorney General even introduced a bill during the last legislative session to negate local government's right to have any role in this and empower all this authority to be in the Attorney General's office, and we were able to defeat that bill, not me, but county judges from all over the state, county commissioners, mayors, other people, hospital district directors, other people impacted, helped defeat that bill. So I'm just going to tell you that this is, you don't want to know how this sausage was made, but it's on the plate now, ready to be eaten, and we hope that we don't have to go through that again, because we have this third provision that permits the same terms and provisions to apply to future settlements. So, a couple of little things on the outside that you might have seen about that, you know, or I think matter. The total settlement across the country is $26 billion. Of that, Texas is going to get $1.8 billion. Whole worldwide picture. That's it. That's everything so far. Not counting the pharmacies, but the settlements that are going on now. The issue is that the Johnson & Johnson money and the Endo money had been paid. They're in the bank account ready to be paid. The majority of the money from the distributors and Teva are being paid out over a 15 to 18 year period. And it ends up being about a billion here and a billion. Ends up being about $1 billion a year that will be distributed among the Texas counties according to the same formula. Second part of this equation that's critically important, because it's the majority of the money. Texas has what they call regional healthcare districts. Kerr County is in Region 8, and it basically is run out of San Antonio, but it's pretty much San Antonio and about the 10 counties west, Gillespie County being the northernmost, and I think maybe Kimball County is the furthest west. It's a 10-county area, and you will be able to submit requests for funds from the Regional Healthcare Authority. They're going to have the control of the majority of the funds. And that committee is made up of a group that was appointed by, I think the governor appointed one, the Speaker of the House appointed one, the judge in our case had a role in appointing those people. There were appointments made from an objective group of sources, so there is going to be a piling on of one special interest group that's going to control that. We feel comfortable with the composition of the committee. There's one or two people that might be considered political appointees, but most of them are scientists, and they're people that are involved in addiction medicine and the public interest of people who have addiction problems. So that's going to be where a lot of those funds will come from. And as you see on this list that has all of the amounts for Kerr, it says Region 6, it's Region 8. $90 million fund to draw from for just our region, and other regions have their own funds to draw from. So it's a significant amount of money, and it's a significant amount of money that is available for any problems that the county feels are legitimate and are due to opioid addiction. And in fact, I think other types of addiction interplay with opioid addiction. So this is going to be for protecting people in our community from the ravages, not only opioids, but we hope that it will help with education about all addiction, treatment for all addiction, and support for people in the community who have addiction. Okay, a couple other things, and then y'all got the Janssen thing. Let me tell you, these settlement agreements are long, 70-something pages long. I cannot understand them. There's people that are a whole lot smarter than me negotiated and spent hours. But if you want any of these settlement agreements to look at, they're on the internet. They're available for you to review. The long and short of it is they're highly complicated, but there are no, to the people that we're working with that I believe are very bright, there are no gotcha provisions in there. There were some, they tried to put them in there, but we were able to negotiate the ones out that we thought were truly, could potentially be harmful to the county's interest. Final little note, you all know that OxyContin was sold by a company called Purdue Pharma. Purdue is owned by a company called the Sackler family, and you know, I would feel sorry for the Sacklers, but for what they've done over the last 20 years. They have gone from yachts and names on museums and estates in England to basically being discredited for the role they played in this scourge that has overtaken our country. They tried to get a settlement for billion here and a billion there, 6.3 billion. The bankruptcy judge rejected that as being too low, and they're now offering, the rumor mill says 8 to 10 million. I do not know, but it's going to be a substantial increase in funds, and Kerr County and Texas will get their proportionate share of those additional funds. So that's a positive development, but it also really places a great big star on the fact that this is an industry that, as much as they're ever going to, has accepted responsibility. Let's put it that way. And so we think we've made a huge impact on slowing down the use of these drugs, educating people about drugs, educating healthcare providers about the appropriate uses of them, and setting up a platform for a program going forward that will help people in this community. And I sent Judge Kelly yesterday a few items. There are numerous very strongly held opinions about what needs to happen in communities. I think the people that work in this area, one of my people that I've become good friends with over the last 4 years is head of the School of Social Work Division of Addiction. Her name's Lorianne Steiger. Just as a matter of public interest, she lost a stepdaughter to an overdose within the last 12 months. She not only teaches this, she lives it. She knows it. She has felt an impact personally. And she is one of these people that has her heart and soul in helping people with addiction, in helping people with effective programs. Not these kind of programs, it's not just do it or just say no or any of that business. It requires a lot more than just positive support to help people who have an opioid addiction. Medication-assisted therapy is the current state-of-the-art program that you use, and every person responds to these medications differently. So there's an array of drugs that help you respond to addiction, and you have to be able to access them. If you can't get to them, they're not going to help you. In places like Kerrville, there's not many physicians that are willing to prescribe these drugs because they're complex drugs, and they're drugs that you don't respond to them in a predictable way. It's not like an antibiotic where you say, hey, I know this antibiotic's going to kill this bacteria. These drugs are psychoactive drugs. So if you have depression, there's probably 30 pills out there that treat depression. They don't all treat depression the same way in every person. Opioid addiction is even more complex. We're dealing with neurochemicals that scientists are beginning to understand, but they don't fully understand. So we need to have people that are educated and are willing to help citizens in Kerr County, whether it be locally or whether it be telemedicine, and help them. We need counseling for these people. We need education for our young people to let them understand, hey, I'll tell you another terrible story. 3 weeks ago, my wife's nephew, who was 26, he'd had his 26th birthday 2 days before, he had hurt his knee in football and became addicted to opioids. He fought a battle up and down. He'd get off of them. He fought a battle. And they believe, got into some tainted opioids and died of an overdose. That's what these young people need to understand. This is not having another shot of Everclear. This is not smoking weed. This is not going out and doing a little something that's maybe a little, take a Xanax or taking something that might make you elucid, might intoxicate you. These are deadly medicines. These are deadly medicines. Fentanyl being the most deadly, and that is what our current crisis is today. We represented Bexar County, and I was able to present Javier Salazar, the sheriff of Bexar County, and Nancy Sanford, who's the chief of their criminal investigation division, CID. I presented them both for depositions, and they both basically will say, I don't want to state them on the record, but Bexar County is not really spending a lot of resources on getting people that have a bag of weed. They're not getting on people that have maybe a couple of joints and they're in the park with their girlfriend on a date. They're dealing with fentanyl, methamphetamine, and the deadly drugs that are coming into our country. Fentanyl being the most deadly by far. So that's where we are. Opioid crisis led to a heroin crisis, led to a fentanyl crisis, and that's what we're fighting right now is this fentanyl crisis. So we have a lot of things that we need to do. Education, prevention, treatment, and trying to provide support to these people. It's something that these funds will help. No, it's not as much as I would have liked to have gotten, but I think this is a very good outcome for a very difficult settlement. This is the first time in my career, I'm about to celebrate 40 years practicing, first time in my career that an industry has been held accountable for what is essentially a public health crisis. And you know what, y'all might have heard Oklahoma won a huge verdict against Johnson & Johnson, and their Supreme Court reversed it and said, you can't sue a company for a public health thing like this. This is everybody, every little community's got to take care of their own problems. You can't sue a big company for that. Well, you know what, that to say the least, that slowed down settlement negotiations when they came down, but we were able to prove to the satisfaction of the defendants that we had a good enough case to where they needed to try to get this case resolved with us. So we feel very fortunate where we are. We know that there are a lot of things still to be done going forward, but we're here to wholeheartedly recommend this settlement, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have, but that's where we are, and I hope that the information you have in front of you will help satisfy any questions that you have, but once again, I'm available right now.
Any questions for Jay? How comfortable are we that this industry has actually been brought to heel?
Exceedingly more than we were 20 years ago. The DEA has been revamped.
I think we'll all agree 20 years ago we were sunk and didn't know it.
Now, what happened, and it's disturbing, and Judge Kelly brought this up, how much are big companies kind of taking advantage of the situations in which what happened, it used to be, you'd work for the DEA for 5 years, then you go work for a drug company and make way more money because private industry pays more, and then maybe you might go back and take another position. It was a very incestuous relationship. They've started policing that. There have been reports produced by the U.S. Senate on how much money specific doctors, specific counselors, and specific companies got paid for how many prescriptions they wrote. They've started policing that. That is now in a national data bank where that can all be traced, and they're trying to stop that. We now have in Texas a mandatory, you cannot issue a controlled substance in Texas without ensuring that that patient fits the right criteria. They live in the right area, they hadn't had a prescription a certain amount of time, they had the right prescription. We're making huge strides. But you know, I don't want to be a cynic, but drug companies, when you got billions of dollars at stake, it's very easy to try to find shortcuts, and sometimes those shortcuts harm people and sometimes they don't. But this clearly was one that did harm people. So, Judge Kelly, I'm optimistic we're making progress, but the problem is not solved. I will tell you this, for the distributors, and keep in mind the distributors go from the manufacturer down to the pharmacy level, they have really stepped up their game because nowadays everything, I don't know if y'all seen those pictures of how Amazon works where everything's robots and they go around warehouses and pick things. A lot of this is now the opportunity for humans to misbehave is being taken out of a lot of these scenarios. And to me, that's a big deal because, you know, if you got a guy in the warehouse that knows he can grab a case of oxycodone and take it out on the street and make $10,000, that temptation is being eliminated or has been eliminated. So I do think we're making great progress.
And with the general funds, how would we expect those to be available to Kerr County?
They'll be paid out of this trust fund when everybody
The
else
healthcare
gets theirs.
authority?
Yes, sir. It's all going to be very mechanical. This committee will have control of it. One thing I want to remind you of too, even though the city of Kerrville never filed a lawsuit, they benefited from the efforts of Kerr County and the other people that did file a lawsuit. So the city of Kerrville is going to get, well, this is just in the distributor side of this. City of Kerrville is going to get $190,000, whereas Kerr County is getting $218,000. And it's all based on population. It's all based on the risk factors I told you about. I would encourage you, and I know the city and county sometimes see eye to eye and sometimes don't, but in this situation, to me, I would implore you to try to do what you can to use those funds in a coordinated manner, because that's how you're going to get your best results.
One of the things that we've seen recently is regional cooperation. We've been working regionally on several different levels. Now you talk about this Region 8. That's about how many counties? 15, 20?
I have the number here and I can tell you, but go ahead.
Bear plus 10.
Bear plus 10? Kind of like ACOG?
Yes, sir.
ACOG's about 13, I think. But the thing about when we work with Bear County, they pretty much get all the money.
Yeah.
That's why we like to work with regional counties. Regionally, we seem to do a little bit better with our peers.
Okay, so Region 8 consists of the following. We'll just, Heather, are your eyes better
We'll
than
see.
mine? It's a small map.
Oh dear.
I have a magnifying glass.
I need to get some glasses with.
I can't see that.
Okay.
So I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So, I believe it is Gillespie, Kerr, Kendall, Bandera, Real, Del Rio, and then it's south of going down to. I'm sorry. I'm gonna offer this to you. I thought this would print with the names of them listed, but it didn't. It just gave me a map. And you can go on this website anytime you want and find it. But it's as you'll see, it's our kind of people. It's not people other than Bear County. It's kind of our kind of people. It's the hill country people and kind of southwest hill country. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, it goes from Del Rio to
It's got Uvalde County in it too.
Gillespie to Kendall. It comes around to Comal, Guadalupe, Gonzales, Lavaca, all the way down to
That's huge.
Goliad.
That's more than 10.
Yeah,
It's more than 10.
it comes back over to
yeah,
back
that's-
at LaSalle, back up that way. So that's going to
a
be
chunk.
that's
That's huge.
25, 30 counties.
Easily.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can read it now. Valverde, Edwards, Real, Kerr, Gillespie, Kendall, Comal, Guadalupe, Gonzales, Lavaca, Jackson, Calhoun, Victoria, DeWitt, Goliad, Carnes, Wilson, Bear, Atascosa, Frio, LaSalle, Medina, Uvalde, Zapata, Dimmitt, and whatever South Kinney County,
Maverick.
Maverick. And I'll be honest with you, I personally talked to several people that deal with rural mental health issues because they're unique, they're different, and you got to have the resources for people that either can't get from point A to point B or should not be required to get there because they need help. And why should you have to drive 200 miles into San Antonio to get go see a counselor? As we all know, with COVID going on, this has really enhanced the efficacy of these programs because You know, it used to be nobody had telemedicine. Heck, nowadays, if you got a doctor's appointment, half the time, you know, they're over the phone or they're over Zoom. So this is going to really enhance the ability of these doctors to deal with those programs. And you know, to me, I can go on forever, but one thing you don't think about, one of the big experts we had in this case, there's been a huge outbreak of hepatitis over the last 10 years. It's all because of IV drug use. Hepatitis is transmitted over 90% by common IV drug use, and IV drug users do that. It is a drug that costs our healthcare system millions. When you get hepatitis and you have liver disease and all the concomitant problems, it is expensive to treat and it's expensive to maintain those people safely. We have what they call NAS babies, neonatal abstinence syndrome babies. That's babies that are born to women who were on opioids. They have cognitive decline, they have physical disabilities, a lot of times they have seizure disorders. You can imagine what it costs to deal with a child who's born with one of these diseases, because it is just exorbitant to pay for that. So we think that we need to move forward all along the spectrum. Education to stop it, helping people who have addiction problems deal with it. My pet project that I'm working on with Nancy Sanford, the head of CID in San Antonio, is getting a program in place where you get a young man or woman who comes in with some heroin. Well, you know, maybe there's a better alternative than putting them in jail and sending them to the state penitentiary for a year or two, because once they're there, statistically, they're going to spend a majority of their life in the criminal justice system. Once you're there, it is a revolving door. And there are great programs in Bexar County and Harris County, the drug courts, which I know Kerr County does not have the resources for a separate drug court, but you might consider whether or not there's a way to deal with these young people that are first-time offenders or even second-time offenders, to try to break this cycle.
We have a limited drug court.
Good. Good. I've not been that familiar with local. I don't do work in the courthouse here on criminal work, but I fully support that idea. And it doesn't work in every case, but it works statistically in the vast majority of cases.
Well, Jay, we appreciate your hard work. Where do we go from here?
Sign the papers and get them back. And I apologize we didn't have more time to let y'all deliberate on this, but I sent the papers in within 24 hours of when I got them, and then we have to get them in by March the 10th, so everything was moving pretty quick there. And to be honest with you, a lot of it was like these drug companies were like, we need to get this done by a certain time period for our financial reporting requirements. So it was a lot of little factors like that that made the timetable be what it is. But we need these papers signed and back to the people that are handling it preferably by tomorrow, but certainly by the 10th.
I've got that part of it, but what do we do as a county?
Well, I think the first thing to do is let's see what the timing is on getting funds in here, and in the meantime, you gentlemen, I think, need to sit down and put your heads together, and I'm happy to offer resources. I'm happy to put you in touch with a couple of these experts and figure out what is the infrastructure we need so that when the funds come here, we know how to use it wisely. We don't want it tobacco money where we're out building bridges and, you know, things that have nothing to do with the problem that we were trying to solve. And talk to people who can help you set up programs that work for this size community with the needs that we have in Kerrville, Texas, in Kerr County.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
Okay. Do we have all the information we need to make the decision right now? Or is any privileged information we need to hear in executive session?
So do you think there's anything that needs to be heard in executive session?
I don't know the executive session parameters, but as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the more public knows about this, the better. And
That's been my
Yeah.
approach also.
there's a lot of misinformation in the news, and even the information I have, sometimes I wonder about the reliability of it, but we're trying to give you the best information that we have, and what I presented today is the current best information that I have.
You presented the funds coming this way, and they're pretty fast, and I missed it a little bit, but are you talking about an annual amount that's going to hit us for quite some time?
No, we take a one-time payment
That's-
in that PowerPoint.
I thought you said some of those settlements were over a period of time. That's the reason I'm asking.
Yes, sir. Those will be coming annually until done. And I don't have the number for what
Okay.
Kerr County is going to get every year. I'm happy to get it to you. It's being calculated.
Well, I guess my point is for us to make decisions. Or are we making decisions about a one-time shot at something, or are we making decisions that are going to stagger over time.
You're approving the entire settlement, including the future payouts. But as far as where those funds are spent, I think you have to be dynamic and flexible. And if you get a year into a program or 2 years into a program and you say, hey, we need to tweak this to make it work a little bit different way, you certainly have the authority to do that.
Okay.
I'm thinking financial. So these funds will go into a designated fund in the county, and then during our annual budget process, we'll budget out of that fund like we do dedicated funds.
That would be my understanding. The ideal being that it stays in something dedicated to its intended purpose.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. You have a motion?
For,
Aren't there three different motions?
Under A, 1.1A, that language would probably be sufficient.
To consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize the county judge to execute the order regarding settlement offers in the matter of the Texas opioid multi-district litigation for the county in the matter of County of Kerr versus Purdue Pharma et al. An MDL pretrial cause. Is that what we're talking about?
There's more than one release that has to be signed. I sent them to Jody, and I think I sent them to Heather, and if y'all have some question about them, but there's one for Endo, there's one for Teva, and there's one for,
Judge, if that's your motion, I'll second it.
Well, I think the motion that I'll make is that we approve the necessary paperwork to settle the pending matters regarding the opioid litigation as presented.
I'm good with that. Second.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Unanimous, 4-0.
thank you, everybody that was involved. I truly hope that we can continue to work together on making this thing happen and be effective. So anything we can do, this is not the end of it as far as I'm concerned. This is just really the beginning. So we're available
Okay.
at any time.
Then
Jody, you sure you got?
what we'll do is, Heather, if you would, you and Jay get the necessary paperwork, bring them into my office around the round table, and we'll get them all signed so he can leave here with them.
Okay, I think that the copies that I made of this, Jay, are all the ones that are supposed to be signed, and that's gonna be about 4
Well,
or 5
I think there's these
signatures.
right here. Is there two?
Well, I want the lawyers to put them in my hand before I sign.
Tell me what to sign.
So I know I'm signing the right ones. So, that's just perfunctory for us to do that at this point, so there's no other business before the court at this time, so we are adjourned.